This video is sponsored by Simply Safe. More on them later. In my last video, I unveiled the Sculpey Ultimate Sculpting Starter Set. If you have not been able to check that out and you want to start sculpting using all of the clays that I use regularly in my videos, be sure to check out the link below to get your own. Hey everyone, Ace of Clay here. Welcome back to my channel, but if you're new here, I'm a sculptor and every week I make a new sculpture, so be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so that you don't miss any future videos. Today, I'm making my version of Hades, the god of the Underworld. As usual, this is a very, very highly requested sculpture. I've been wanting to make this guy for the longest time. I actually made Cerberus, the Hellhound, who is technically Hades' pet, and he guards the underworld for Hades. So if you haven't seen that video, be sure to check that out after this one. Hades comes out really cool. I really like the different spin that I gave him. He looks nothing like the Disney version, so don't expect that if that's why you're here. And all in all, as usual, I really hope you like him. So be sure to hit like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Ace of Clay, and let's get started. Alright, you know the drill. The first step is the armature. I'm going to shape out the torso and shoulders from this aluminum wire, and then I'm going to tie the ends together because he's going to be wearing a robe and he won't have individual legs, so obviously I don't need to do each leg. And as always, all of the materials and tools that I use in this video are listed in the description box below, along with my affiliate links if you want to purchase anything. And as you can see here, I'm shaping out the bottom half of the robe with some aluminum foil. If you are not new to my channel, this process should be very familiar. Now once I have the general shape of the robe figured out, I'm going to cover everything in some Super Sculpey Ultralight. This is going to further reinforce my armature, and it makes a great surface for my final layer of clay. And now before I forget, I need to attach the arms as another piece of wire, and I'm attaching them with some floral wire, like that. Now we're going to bulk out the torso with some more Ultralight. And once everything's looking pretty good, I'm going to add a skewer for the neck and then reinforce it at the base with some more Ultralight. Then we're going to get him ready for his first bake. And once he's baked and completely cooled down, it's time for our final layer of clay. For this project, I will be using Super Sculpey Original and Super Sculpey Firm, but not until later on. And I'm just attaching these nice even sheets of clay, getting the entire surface covered, and then we're going to go in with our details. And then of course, since this is a robe, we are going to add some snakes of clay that taper at one end, and we are going to blend the edges in with the rest of the robe. This is going to create a nice fabric texture. And as I do this, I am keeping in mind gravity. I've mentioned this several times before. I do a lot of fabric on this channel, but like I said, I do keep in mind gravity. I'm not just randomly placing these snakes, so if you have trouble with this, I always say throw a sheet over a chair and use that as your reference. It's a great way to get comfortable with it, and then you know what? It's just clay. If you mess up, you just take it off and start over. And we need to grab some more. How satisfying is this? Alright, let's keep going with those snakes. Alright, now that I got the main part of the robe figured out and nice and textured, I'm going to go ahead and make another little piece of fabric that'll sort of drape down the front. I'm using this piece of clay that I rolled through my pasta maker, cut it to size, and I'm just sort of strategically wrinkling it and cutting some random holes to tatter it a little bit. Remember, this is Hades, not Hercules. Alright, now for the next step, we are going to work on the torso, and for the first time ever on this channel, I'm going to attempt to make a semi-anatomically correct male torso. We're going to try to get all the muscles in the right place and actually make it look pretty realistic. I still want it to be somewhat stylized because, as you can see, his legs are extremely long and my style is very cartoony and exaggerated, so we're going to keep with that a little bit, but be a little more realistic on the chest here. So we're just going to time-lapse through that. As you saw, I added the pectoral muscles, and now after adding that piece for the abdomen, I'm going to go in with my ball stylus and a couple other tools to detail the abs. Alright, once that torso's at a good point, it's looking pretty good, I'm going to go ahead and bring out the hips a little bit more. I wasn't expecting this to be that like normal looking, so I have to bring these out a little bit so that they are the same size as the torso, of course. And then before I go any further, I do want to start adding the arms. Now once the upper arms are on, we're going to go in and add the deltoids and then of course the biceps. And as you can see, this guy can be pretty ripped. And the reason why I'm moving straight to the arms right now is because I want to start adding some clothing and armor to him, so I obviously can't do that without his arms being on. And then believe it or not, I also make him an entirely in one bake. I just baked the ultralight that you saw earlier, and then I do make him a prop later on that I pre-bake, but his entire body, the whole sculpture for the most part, I do in one shot, and it just worked out that way. No idea why. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Alright, now that the torso is pretty much done, I'm going to go ahead and start adding his clothing. I'm going to add this little piece of fabric across the chest, and then the band around the waist. And then we're going to try to figure out his cape. Alright, now for attempt number 1, I'm just sort of strategically wrinkling this piece of clay, and it's a little shorter than I like, trying to sort of experiment with some armor here. Not sure how I want it to look. Trying to keep in mind again that this is Hades and not Hercules, so he's got to be evil looking. And then, yeah, let's take that smaller cape off and do a nice floor length one. And to add the details to this one, I'm going to use some snakes of clay to create some folds and wrinkles. And once all those snakes are on, I just want to sort of manipulate the clay to create wrinkles on the other side and get this into its final form. And then it actually turns out pretty good. Like, check it out. Not bad. Now we're going to attach this later on after I finish the armbands and some other details. Now for the details on the armbands, we're going to add some tiny little skulls. How's that look? And now it's time to attach the cape with some bacon bond. And then we can't forget about that strap of fabric around his waist. Now let's add some more details once everything is in a good spot. I'm going to add these pieces of, they would be, I think, leather hanging down from the front here in true Greek fashion. We're going to give him a little belt. And then as an added detail on the front piece, let's add this little skull with horns. Very nice. And now for some more details. Hi again. Before we continue sculpting Hades, let's talk a little bit about our sponsor, SimpliSafe. SimpliSafe is incredibly effective, reliable home security that will make sure your home is safe. You can order it online or over the phone. It's delivered right to your door, and you can set up the entire system in under an hour. You just stick the sensors exactly where you need them. From there, once everything is set up and good to go, your home is professionally monitored 24/7, and if anything were to happen, they make sure the police are called. They've got sensors to cover every window, room, and door, and extra features features like water sensors, temperature sensors, and HD cameras. It's all super easy to use, and you get around-the-clock protection 24/7 for just 50 cents a day. Now, I moved out into my first house a couple years ago, and the house was extremely dated. We had to do a ton of stuff to it, and it didn't have a security system, and this is always something that I've wanted to have. So this honestly could not have come at a better time. They sent me an entire system. It is so reliable, so easy to put up, and so easy to use. It's not even funny. I've got the home base, I've got all these sensors installed. My entry sensors protect my windows and doors, and then the motion sensors protect entire rooms. And the sensors are sleek and small, so I don't even see them. There's also thoughtful features like reminders to let you know that you've left a window or a door open, which is great because I'm extremely forgetful. So if all of this sounds good to you and you're ready to start protecting your home, head on over to simplysafe.com/aceofclay. And honestly, the peace of mind you'll get from this is amazing. I could not be happier to have a Simply Safe protecting my home and my family. Okay, thank you, Simply Safe. Now back to Hades. Welcome back. Now let's keep going with those details. Alright, now I don't have any footage of how I made these pieces of armor, but they came out really cool looking, so I'm going to show you how I made them in a separate clip that is not part of this actual video, so let's roll that. Alright, now that you know how I made the armor, let's place it. And that's looking pretty good. Now let's just take it off temporarily. We're not ready to permanently place it yet, and we're going to give him a very big staff. And I want it to be, like I said, big, obnoxious, very pointy, and scary looking. So we're going to do that with some aluminum wire wrapped around this skewer. And then I'm just sort of figuring out the shape. I do want it to be a blade. That's about the only thing that I knew going into this part. Alright, once I've got the shape figured out and it's nice and secure, I'm going to further secure it with some bacon bond and then some more clay. I want it to look like these blades are coming out of a skull. And now let's detail the skull. And once that skull's looking pretty good, we're going to add some Super Sculpey Firm for the blades. And I'm just going to take my blade from Excel Blades and cut it at an angle to create that sort of sharp edge on each side. And of course, you can use code ACEOFCLAY at excelblades.com to get 15% off your purchase. They have a lot of really cool stuff. After cutting some notches into the blades, I'm going to go ahead and add the final detail to the top of the staff. And this is going to be sort of a grip area for his hands. And now for the next step, I'm going to brush some Bacon Bond onto the skewer area just to fill in any cracks or holes and give it a nice smooth surface. And now I'm going to brush the clay areas with some clay softener to remove fingerprints and get this ready to bake. And once that's baked and completely cooled down, we're going to go ahead and attach it to Hades. I'm just going to wrap the excess wire in the arms around the areas where I want him to be holding it, and then I'm going to add his hands over that wire. And once everything is in place, we're going to go ahead and attach the hands like I just mentioned. If you want to see how I made these hands, check out pretty much any of my other videos where I make a humanoid character. I've done it so many times I figured there's really no reason to keep that footage in here anymore. So there we go, there's the hand on and in place, and now I am going ahead and detailing a nice cuff. And now it's time to start the head. I'm going to cover a ball of aluminum foil with some of that Super Sculpey Firm, and we're going to start shaping it out. And early on, I decided that I want him to have a skull head with two really large horns coming out of it. At this point, I didn't know exactly how I wanted to look, but I did know I wanted him to have a skull head. So I'm going to go ahead and start detailing that right now with my spoon tool, and then moving on from there. Now I'm just pressing out the eye sockets with my medium ball stylus and then getting them into the shape that I like. And then with my tiny ball stylus, I'm going to go ahead and press in the nose hole. Now I'm going to go ahead and exaggerate that brow bone and add some snakes of clay to give him a frowning expression. I also brought out his cheekbones a little bit more using the same method. Alright, now onto the mouth area. Now I want him to have two fangs, so I'm just adding a piece of clay where one fang is going to be, and I am just shaping it out with this pointed end of my spoon tool. Alright, now once his face is looking pretty good, we're going to go ahead and try to figure out the horns. I'm going to use that same 12 gauge aluminum wire that I used for all of the armature. I'm just going to figure out what shape I want him to be in. Now I've sort of settled on this backward facing horn shape, so I'm just going to go ahead and add some clay to this. This is not the final arrangement of them that I end up going with, it's just kind of the next step. So, and then here I'm just adding some smaller snakes of clay to create some ridges going up each one. And then here I'm figuring out how I really want the horns to be. We're going with a more traditional orientation for them, but just pointing them upwards. Now after finishing the other horn off camera, we're going to go ahead and attach his head with a little bit of Bacon Bond. And now I'm getting ready to permanently adhere the armor. I'm going to attach this with some Bacon Bond as well. Just want to make sure it's in the spot that I like first. Now I'm going to go ahead and brush the entire surface with clay softener to remove fingerprints and get him ready for his final bake. And once he's baked and completely cooled down, it's time for paint. All the paints that I use in this video are Folk Art brand matte and metallic acrylics. For the first step in the painting process, I'm going to go in and paint his skin this nice color called Mauve Dust. And after a couple coats of Mauve Dust, I'm going to go in with some pure black and paint pretty much everything else. I want him to have a nice black undercoat. Once that nice, smooth, matte black base coat is on, we're going to go ahead and start dry brushing the rest of it. I'm going to start with these little detail pieces up in the front here with some nice grayish brown that I made by mixing brown, titanium white, and pure black. Just going to go ahead and add some highlights all over the place until I get it to a point that I like. We're also going to dry brush a different grayish brown all over the other parts of his costume. And then for the armor, I'm using some Folk Art Treasure Gold in the color Platinum. This metallic is so high coverage, I absolutely love it. It comes in a billion different colors, and it's really the best metallic acrylic I have ever used. Now I'm going to finish off the cuffs as well, just by dry brushing some of that metallic on there. I'm also going to dry brush some of that silver on his staff, and this is an extremely satisfying process, watching that go on over black. And now for another added detail, I'm going to go in and add some accent areas with some green gold. This is also a Treasure Gold metallic. And I'm also going to dry brush this on the silver areas just to give them a little bit of a sort of rusty greenish tinge. Now for his head, we're going in with some warm white. Just going to do a couple coats of this, get it nice and smooth. And then for the horns, I mixed some brown, pure black, and titanium white to create this nice grayish brown color, very similar to the color that I was dry brushing on his clothing. Then I created a light gray wash, and I'm going into all of the nooks and crannies on his face to add some shading and, of course, dimension. And once the horns are completely dry, I'm going in with some lighter brown to bring out all of those details. And after painting the nose and eye sockets, he's done! My version of Hades is complete. Let me know how you think I did in the comments. And then if you used any of the tips and techniques in this video on your own projects, share them to Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and tag me at AceOfClay or hashtag AceOfClay so I can check them out. And that's a wrap! I really hope you like how my version of Hades, the god of the underworld, turned out. I really like how he turned out. I love the big horns. I love how he's like the most detailed sculpture that I've made so far this year, and I really want to know what you think of him, so let me know that in the comments. And once again, thank you so much to Simply Safe for sponsoring this video. And as always, thank you so much for watching and being here. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and then follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Ace of Clay. I'm also on TikTok, so check me out there, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.